Well. BMAC, we gonna address the elephant in the room here? You want to say something? Of course, you don't say anything because you're a mute, which is what you're supposed to be. I appreciate that. I guess I'm going to address it. Because at the end of our last podcast, when I was talking about my journeys with salvia, I was getting into the nitty gritty with a story about my Uncle Garland. And I was telling people why I didn't recommend taking this substance called salvia. And then all of a sudden, some breakup happens. My story gets cut short. I got stopped short. Somebody stole my move. And this cretin, I don't know who the hell he is. What was his name? Dr. Falkenstein or something like that? What was that, Big B-Mac? Oh, Dr. Falkenbach. You sure awfully know a lot about this Dr. Falkenbach. That's pretty suspicious there, B-Mac. You know, that Dr. Falkenstein, Dr. Falkenbach, whatever the hell you want to call him, guy was wearing some glasses that were pretty nifty. Sure knew a lot about the CIA. B-Mac, don't you know somebody that used to work for the CIA? Pretty suspicious stuff, man. I don't know. And then this guy, first of all, he's doing the news in his car. Who the hell does the news in the car? That's CIA written all over it. Then he goes into his dungeon, wherever the hell that was, showing off his book collection. Oh, I read books. Good for you, Dr. Falkenstein. Sorry, Falkenbach. That is your real name. You know, I've read some books too. So don't get it twisted, son. But how the hell, how did he get on our program, huh? You're the video editor. There's something going on. There's something going on behind the scenes I'm not being aware of here. And I'll appreciate this. Because, yes, you're part of this too. But I'm the founder of Creepy and Weird. I'm the real deal Holyfield, goddammit. Alright? And I'm telling a story about my relative, my hippie mentor. And this guy comes on. And he's going off about flat earth stuff? You invite a guy that's a flat earther on our podcast? I mean, why don't you just write a letter to Bill Gates right now saying, hey, dear Mr. Bill Gates, why don't you just cancel us right now? Cancel our show. Send, your boy, Hippie Steve, back to the greasy hands of Jiffy Lube, because you obviously don't give a crap about this. I have nothing against flat earthers, man. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. That's the way I look at it. But you know what? Let's be adults here. We know the earth isn't flat. Okay? The earth is hollow. We all know that. Alright, Dr. Falkenbach. So if you want to keep coming on this show, you have my invitation, not B-Max, but mine. The head of the table. Alright? So you want to keep coming back here doing your real fake news? By all means, my friend. But you have to talk to me first. You have to get past me. Because I'm going to finish my story. And that's the bottom line. Because Hippie Steve said so. So, with that out of the way... Goodbye. Welcome to Creepy and Weird. I am your host, Hippie Steve, the head of the table. The one, the only, the never phony, the real deal Holyfield. The man, the myth, the legend, the beard, the glasses, not wearing the Mack truck diesel, representing the UCLA. I'm a basketball fan, so that's why I wear that. I actually got it from a UCLA basketball game back in 2011. But this isn't about basketball. This isn't about B. Diddy himself, Baron Davis, one of the greatest guards in the history of basketball, who claimed to have been abducted by aliens, by the way. So, B. Diddy, you want to come on this podcast and talk about that, my brother? We'll talk about beard tips and alien abduction, and hell, man, it'd be awesome. But, yet again, this isn't about that. This is about our show. Hopefully don't get any more interruptions, at least not for right now. Dr. Falkenbach, you have permission to come on here. Don't interrupt me when I'm talking about a family member, though. Interrupt me when I'm, talking to B-Mac. You know? Or when I'm getting tongue twisted. Or if I'm getting indigestion. Speaking of that, give me 1 second. I got a little bit of a pro tip here for the indigestion. I'm not going to show what I'm drinking. But I'm going to wet my whistle a little bit here so I don't keep... I won't show the label unless they want to sponsor. But that is... you can kind of see what it is. 0 calorie. So I like to keep it keto. Ooh, it's a refreshing beverage. So you people that invented that concoction back in the late 1800s, if you want to sponsor our podcast, knock yourselves out. But with that out of the way, we are going to get into the matter at hand, which we're going to be talking about the big guy. I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about Sasquatch. Bigfoot. You know what they say about big feet? You got some big socks. Because trust me, I got big feet too, and that's about all that freaking means. But we're talking about good old Sasquatch himself or herself. And I'm going to make a proclamation right here. Because I'm sick and tired of going on YouTube or any of these other podcasts and hearing people talk about Bigfoot or Sasquatch. Like Joe Rogan, for example. Oh, I don't believe in that Bigfoot exists. It's a bear. Screw you, man. I have a lot of appreciation for Rogan, all right? And I know Rogan has kind of backtracked his claim on Bigfoot a little bit. I think he's admitted in a recent podcast that he's acknowledging that it might be an interdimensional species, which congratulations to you on that, Joe Rogan. At least you're coming to on that. But for a long time, that was Rogan's whole thing. It's a bear, man. It's a bear. I saw a squirrel one time back in 1997. And I thought it was a deer. You know, he was probably high as a kite on DMT when he saw it anyway. So what the hell does he know? Freaking deer eater. You know? I don't hate Joe Rogan. I'm not going Neil Young on you. Old man, take a look at my life. I was a lot like you were. You know, that guy's backtracked on his stance on Spotify too. That's a pretty funny story. Freaking sellout. And I don't want to talk about Neil Young. Screw him. You know, he's... I don't know. I'm not going to knock Neil Young right now. We're talking about Sasquatch. Talking about Bigfoot. Not even talking about Joe Rogan. But the reason why I brought Joe Rogan up is because he's one of those guys where it's like, oh, there couldn't possibly be a Bigfoot that exists. Where's the bodies? Where's the bodies? Because, you know, when you walk into a forest, you're always stepping over deer carcasses and bear carcasses and squirrel carcasses all the time. I live in the Pacific Northwest, man. I go hiking. There ain't a damn body out there to be found. All right? I could assure you. I've seen plenty of stuff out there. Might have even seen a Bigfoot or two. Definitely not seen any bodies. So that's a terrible, terrible example to say why Bigfoot doesn't exist. What about the food? What about the food? We don't know what Bigfoot eats. You know, according to some commercials, he eats beef jerky. So there might be that. You know, why don't we put up this graphic, kind of show you a correlation of what Bigfoot actually might be eating. Look at this. Look at this first graphic. BMAC's going to pop it up right now. Now let's pop up this second graphic. International House of Pancakes? More like International House of Squatch Cakes. Alright? So that he might be getting his food from that source. We don't know. We don't know what Bigfoot is, or what it does, or where it goes, or if it's interdimensional. We don't know any of that. One thing I could tell you for sure, though, is a freaking thing exists. Okay? Do you know how I know that? By A, photographic evidence, video evidence, and by foot imprints. And I know people are going to say, oh, those foot imprints are obviously doctored. They're fake. It's easy to put together. Au contraire, my friend. We're going to get in all that. I'm going to put it like this. If we were to put if the existence of Bigfoot was real or not in the court of law, I'd win. Hands down. There are court cases that are won not necessarily on physical evidence, but like forensic evidence. So we're going to go toe to toe with everything that, in my opinion, suggests that Bigfoot 100% exists. And as I said in past podcasts, I'm a student of Robert Anton Wilson. I don't sit here and say I believe very easily. But this is one of the things I do believe in. Believe in Hippie Steven when I say this. Okay? So if you're just going to smirk and act like he doesn't exist and you want to keep living your fantasy land, then go watch Neil deGrasse Tyson talk about the Big Bang and, the clang and, I don't know, how the earth isn't hollow. So I don't think he believes in that, but the earth is hollow, by the way. Sorry, Dr. Falkenbach. But, yeah. So we're going to get into the proof. To me, the proof is in the pudding, and I'm going to be having plenty of pudding for you today, my friends, to show you once and for all. End of the debate. I don't want to hear it anymore. Bigfoot, Sasquatch, whatever the heck you want to call it, does exist. And let's get into the evidence right now. So, let's see here. Where do I want to start? Because obviously, there is the most famous footage of Bigfoot that I want to get to towards the end. But I want to start off with one that's not known as well. And this is some sort of footage that was cut off of I would only assume, a phone from back in the 2000s. Because the footage isn't really that clear. It's grainy. I know people are going to say, oh, grainy footage, Hippie Steve. There you go. You're really making a case. Just watch. Just shut up and watch. Just shut up and watch the Squatch. And you'll see what I'm talking about here. Because this freaking thing. So this was up in Alberta. Let me make sure I got my facts straight here. This was up in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. The home of champions. I don't think it was in Calgary, though. I just wanted to say that. It's a wrestling reference. You don't get it, you don't get it. But it was in Alberta, Canada. A lot of tree milling going on there. And so this was in a tree lot where people were cutting down trees. And this shadowy image was caught on camera. And let's just take a look here and see what we could find. This thing is hucking what appears to be a tree. He's hucking a tree like it's a javelin. Okay? Now I know yet again this isn't the best quality footage, but how do I put this? A tree, I don't know how much a tree weighs, but a tree weighs a lot. Okay? Trees absorb water through its roots. That's how it gets its nutrients. And the tree alone, with just the wood, weighs a lot. with that water weight added into it, you can only imagine how much more weight that would be. I mean, if I had to imagine this tree, even though it's not the biggest tree in the world, I'm going to take a look again at this footage again, just so I know what I'm talking about. I'm going to say this tree easily weighs somewhere in proximity of, let's just throw a number out there, 500 pounds. Okay? If this was a person, they would hold the record for javelin throw for ever by doing this. I mean, this person shouldn't be faking trying to be a Bigfoot. This person should be in the Olympics. They'd be sponsored by Wheaties and, do other things, make a lot more money. There's no money that was made off of this footage. You can rest assured on that. This is just some old grainy footage from back in the 2000s from some asshole up in Canada. And this is compelling stuff. This is verdict number 1, that Bigfoot exists. I mean, what could possibly be doing this? And maybe somebody will say, oh, it's a prop. Even if this is a prop, let's just say, for matter of argument, that this is a prop. That's one hell of a throw. That's a pretty, even if that's a javelin, that's a huge javelin. I just don't buy it. I don't buy that this is fake. This was obviously some sort of Sasquatch that was pissed off because some Canadian loggers were messing with its territory, and it was caught on camera. And this is actually very common in logging areas and stuff of that nature where you're out deep in the woods. A lot of loggers see Sasquatch quite a bit. Especially back in the day when they didn't have cameras or camera phones or anything like that. It was seen quite a bit, and you just heard stories. You're thinking, yeah, people guzzling down the sauce and being alone out in the woods doing God knows what. But then, they start getting some footage here, and this was caught. So that's verdict number 1. Now let's get to verdict number 2, which is the most famous footage of Bigfoot ever. This is the footage known as the Patterson-Gimlin film. Now I want you to do a little bit of a test. I want you to go up to anybody and say, hey, you know that famous footage of Bigfoot from back in the 60s? The one where it's walking and kind of looks over and, looked pretty real. That was debunked, right? I bet you with every amount of money that I have, and I don't have that much money, but, with the $10 I have in my account, I bet you that 99% of the people you ask that question to will say, oh yeah, of course it's been debunked. It's been debunked by Neil deGrasse Tyson. It hasn't. This is actually considered the best evidence for the existence of Bigfoot. There has been a ton of analysis that has been done on this video over and over and over again. Now, let's just look at the video before I get into the nitty-gritty of why I think that this is 100% real. So, we're looking at this footage here. Now, first of all, this Sasquatch, has tits. Now, for sake of argument, let's say that this was fake. Let's say I would, in the 60s, keep in mind, I was going to fake a Bigfoot sighting, have somebody dress up as a Bigfoot, put them in a costume, have them walk across a creek, have a camera up there, and I'm designing the costume. Would I, honest to God, think, hey, you know what would be great? Let's put a big pair of luscious tits on this thing. That's just, there's something too peculiar about that for that to be fake. And maybe that's the mindfuck. Maybe that's the thing that they're using to say, oh, this is 100% real. But it's not just the big, juicy tits, as good old Norm Macdonald likes to call them, that is part of the anatomy of this creature caught in the video of the Patterson-Gimlin film. It's whole anatomy. I mean, you look at the muscle features on this thing, the length of its arms, the way its head looks. The head is exactly the way an ape's head would look like. It has, what do they call that? I don't know. I'm not an anthropologist or anything like that. So, but I mean, the head looks like a monkey or a gorilla. The arms are long, not like a human. There's muscle features in its legs that if this was a costume, this is the greatest costume ever designed, especially for 1960s technology. Now, let's not forget that this film, I think, came out in 1967. This would have been around the same time as Planet of the Apes, the major motion picture movie that was out around that time. And let's compare. I don't know if I want to show any footage because I don't want to get copyright struck, but you can watch the movie. It's not hard to find. Compare the apes in Planet of the Apes, which was the most high-tech technology we had for costumes back then, and compare that to the Patterson-Gimlin film. Am I supposed to believe that these Patterson-Gimlin folks had more money than the studio that made Planet of the Apes? I don't think so. Come on. And not only that, there's a lot of footage in Planet of the Apes where if you watch it, you'll notice they only have like the tops of, these apes being shown. They would show full body images of them sometimes, but there was other times where they would only show the tops, and that was because, it's very expensive to keep having these costumes placed on these actors to look like apes. And here we have, I forget how long the Patterson-Gimlin photo or the video is for. I think it's about 10 minutes long or so. But this is a full body. It's walking. The way its feet move. I mean, come on. Not only has this not been debunked, anybody that has done serious analysis of this has came out and said, you know what? This actually might be the real deal. The Y-Files. AJ from the Y-Files, who is, what's his famous saying? Is it real? He even said after having analysis of this, he said that this actually makes him more convinced that Bigfoot exists than before. And he's not a big cryptid guy, as he admitted. So that kind of made him somewhat of a believer. I think he's still a little bit of a skeptic. I don't see how you could be a skeptic after seeing stuff like that. And he certainly didn't do an analysis of the javelin thrower up in, Calgary, Alberta, Canada, home of champions. But, that's, to me, pretty compelling stuff, to say the least. And it doesn't end there. I think if we were just to put those two pieces of evidence, the footage up in Canada and the Patterson-Gimlin film, and show this to the court of law, the jury would already determine, yeah, it's real. But it doesn't end there. Because there is also the work of one Jeff Meldrum, who is a professor of anatomy and anthropology at the Department of, Biological Sciences at the at the Idaho State University. God, I'm kind of butchering that, but you get my point. This guy isn't, your run-of-the-mill kook. This guy knows what he's talking about, and he's done countless research on footprints of supposed Sasquatches. And he's looked at, I believe it's called the dermal ridges on some of these foot casts. And the way they're laid out, the way the foot kind of curves in the middle, That is not the way a human foot curves in. And we have fingerprints, but we also have footprints as well, like, dermal ridges on our feet. And, the way that you look at this, and I mean, I'm going to sound like a complete idiot on this part because I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to, the way the anatomy of a ape's foot would be, but it looks like a giant ape's foot. And so don't take my word for it. Take Jeff Meldrum's word for it. Look at the evidence for yourself and tell me what you think. Because there are fingerprint evidence in the court of law that convicts people. So if we're having footprint evidence in this supposed court of law that I'm having to determine that Bigfoot does exist, come on. If the foot fits, you must not acquit. And in this situation, we're not acquitting. I don't know if I'm using the correct terminology here. I just wanted to quote Johnny Cochran. But, the verdict would have to be that Sasquatch does indeed exist. No doubt about it. There's just been too much. You look at the Native American folklore that has happened, that has been told throughout millennia about this big hairy man. They don't just make up animals. They, talk about this as a flesh and blood animal. And, there's countless tales of this big hairy man through many different Native American cultures in our country, specifically up here in the Pacific Northwest. They talk about it a lot. And they treat it as it's real. And they actually talk about Bigfoot being interdimensional. So that's not really something I'm going to get into right now as far as if Bigfoot's interdimensional or not. Yet again, these aren't one and done podcasts, so I'll be doing part 2s and part 3s of this. But I just wanted to get this monkey, no pun intended, off my back, because I'm just so sick and tired of people. Anytime I talk to people and the subject of Sasquatch comes up, they're like, it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Well, look at the evidence I just laid out right now and tell me. Really look at it objectively, not subjectively, but objectively. Do you think that what I just showed you right now is fake? Do you think it's real? Because I could tell you what I think, as I said countless times throughout this podcast. I think it's 100% real, and that's all I got to say about that. So this will be a much shorter podcast than our last 3. These will differ just depending on how much stuff I want to go over. But yeah, I wanted to get this off my back. We're done here. Dr. Falkenbach, or Dr. Falkenbach, Dr. Falkenstein, whatever the heck you want to call yourself, man. I'm coming for you. Payback is a you-know-what. And you messed with the wrong guy, my friend. This isn't done. Because I'm coming to you now. You got that? So, we're done. Embrace the absurd and free your mind, and your ass will follow. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.